Vibrant, multicultural, blessed by nature's bounty, Mauritius. In an unbroken ritual going back nearly 100 years, silent footsteps on dusty roads mark the beginning of Mauritius's deeply reverent celebration of one of their most important festivals, Shivratri.
Today, Mauritius is celebrating Mahashivratri. Mauritians of all communities, especially Hindus, they come here to celebrate this festival. You know, it's kind of a family gathering also when they walk for long distances from their villages.
The fervor with which this uniquely Indian festival is celebrated on this African island is a testament to the varied races, cultures and ethnicities that make Mauritius home.
We might have come from different parts of the world, from different parts of India, but then this festival, in a way, it connects all of us under the same roof, and this is what modern Mauritius is about.
Today, a joyous celebration of multiculturalism. For the first Indians in Mauritius, this Shivratri festival was so much more than a religious ritual. It was a way of keeping home alive on a distant isle.
It used to be called Paritalab, that is the lake where angels live. And when proximity with India kept growing and they found that Ganga has to be represented here, so this lake was rebaptized. It has been called Ganga Talab, and water from the Ganges was poured in here, which means that people in the Indian diaspora will just reinvent whatever is missing to get this sense of belonging and identity.
Ironically, identity is what escaped Mauritius for much of its early existence. Uninhabited for millennia, the island was destined to be nothing more than a passing speck on a sailor's horizon, until Portuguese ships were marooned here and the Dutch set up the first colonial outpost before abandoning the island, which was then claimed by France.
In 1728, on the 11th of November, there came a boat, the Sirène, with 180 Tamils. 50% were slaves and 50% were able men. This is the right date from which the Indian market world diaspora started.
New lands needed new labor, and the French imported them from their colonies in Africa and India. These slaves worked alongside free Indian labor to hack out the plantations that would power Mauritius's economy, to build the forts and buildings that would defend and administer the new colony.
The slave, he was bought just like as if it was a chair or a table. It was a property.
Slaves in Mauritius were so ill-treated that many Maroons, as they were called, fled to the jungles or hid in the hills of Le Morne, rather than face the whip of the colonial masters. But their sufferings were soon to cease. France's crushing defeats during the Napoleonic Wars saw Mauritius becoming part of the British Empire. And although the terms of surrender ensured that local administration remained in French hands, the British were soon to introduce a significant law, the abolition of slavery.
When slavery was abolished in 1835, nothing could retain the slaves on the sugar plantations, because sugar plantations was for them the whip, the ill treatment, and the harsh life. That's why they didn't want to turn back to plantation.
In a repeat of history, the British, now desperately seeking cheap labor to till Mauritius, looked to the east, to Chinese free labor and Indian indentured labor, or Girmityas. Videshiram was one of the many boatmen who ferried indentured laborers across. By his time, the great migration of Indian indentured labor across the world was almost over. But it started with the emigration of the first Girmityas to Mauritius.
I think others should have explained to you what Girmitya means. Agreement became Girmit, they couldn't talk, they couldn't understand, and ultimately we became Girmitya, we became indentured laborers.
And exactly from this particular point, this is the last time they touched the soil of India before they left. The ships were moored in the middle of the river, and that's how they left.
Today, a monument to indentured laborers, to the Girmitya's first journey, has been constructed in Kolkata, a tribute to them by their descendants and the land they left behind.
This is to commemorate the memory and pay the respect to them, their memory and their adventures. And they made the migration of Indians throughout the world. They made Indians, the language, the culture spread throughout the world, risking their life. That's the greatness.
The importance of this monument is to pay tribute to them, because it is truly the indentured laborers who have actually turned the economic situation of the world into a prosperous one.
As this small group of Mauritians sail the Hooghly in their ancestors' wake, they cannot help but reflect on the incredible journey made so many generations ago.
This is a very intense moment, because it is here, from here, that our history started. And Mauritius was the first place where the new experiment in Indian indentured labor started.
But not all indentured laborers went voluntarily. Great migrations meant great hardships. For most Girmityas, leaving home was not a choice, but a necessity forced by famine, landlessness, and insurmountable poverty. But for an unlucky few, emigration was a direct consequence of kidnapping.
One boy in Allahabad, he was taking a bath in a river, and these two recruiters caught him and said, "We will give you something to eat and we will give you a job and you will earn lots of money." The boy protested that no, he doesn't need a job and he doesn't want to go anywhere. They dragged him.
But the Girmityas' real struggle began once they'd set sail. Never having set foot on a ship before, its close quarters, acute food shortages, and harsh seas meant that many did not survive the journey.
There are very, very few actually who went back to India, who dared to go back, because after having experienced this difficult travel from India to Mauritius, they preferred to stay behind. But they had kept this bond of friendship among themselves.
Apravasi Ghat, where echo the footsteps of nearly 500,000 Indians.
For me, it's very emotional, because my great-grandfather also came on these steps and also probably came on this site, met the protector, got his certificate. All the immigrants who came to Apravasi Ghat went to the office of the Protector of Immigrants, signed their labor contract, they were photographed, given a pass, and went on to the sugar estates and the docks wherever they were required.
And so began a time of unimaginable hardship. Blood, sweat, tears and toil was the price demanded of Girmityas.
Indentured laborers, they had to stay in their camp and not to roam around in the country. The law was such that no worker, no laborer employed by a particular company, by a particular sugar estate, can go to another place. And if he was caught in another place, he was treated as a vagrant.
But in just a few generations, Mauritius's Indians were to throw off their shackles and their colonial masters.
These stones have been made by slaves, and now today you got their own grandsons walking on these same stones, but who are now the corporates, managers, businessmen. You got a feeling of pride.
No longer a colony, Mauritius today, thanks to its history, is a multiracial society with a place for everyone. Here, school kids sing in Creole while breaking into ancient African dances, ending their performance with a spirited shout to Bollywood.
My name is Sheila, Sheila, Sheila Mali. I'm going to sing for you.
The Organization for Diaspora Initiatives is just one of the groups formed to promote Mauritius's mixed culture. They chatter to each other in rapid Creole. Like most Mauritians, they speak it in addition to French and English.
It's a rainbow nation here. We want to uphold our special Mauritian interculturalism of all ethnic groups here.
Here, everybody exists as it is. We have our own entity. We still retain our ancestral culture, but Indian culture is there in our heart.
We have had a lot of influence over the way of life, over the, I would say, the values of the other communities.
In spite of the fact that you see Mauritians of different sort of origin or ethnics apart, the melting pot is good.
The nice thing about being Mauritian is like we live like in a social laboratory where we have so many different cultures in a very small place. And the good thing is that when I travel to India and China, I feel at home.
Feeling at home is perhaps the most precious gift Mauritius could give the descendants of indentured laborers who remember all too well the struggles to survive.
What I've heard from my mom and my sisters is that when they came over here, they faced a lot of hardships, trying to settle down, trying to sort out how to earn a living. And it was a struggle to find your own way and to believe in whatever you're supposed to believe.
अभी बहुत अच्छा मिले काम है सब कुछ है लड़का खूब मजे से पढ़ते थे यूनिवर्सिटी में जाते मैं आगे वो सब नहीं था.
My father was working as a laborer. My grandmother was working as a laborer in one of the biggest states in the east of the country. And now I am the fourth generation and I'm a minister in the country. Just imagine. I said it, from Girmitya to government.
From Girmitya to government, Mauritius's progress to an egalitarian, open society with space for all was steady. And surprisingly, the way out of poverty for many Indians was tied to sugar. for once the Girmitya served out their contracts, they were free to take advantage of the sugarcane boom.
Eventually, when they became free, they did not re-indenture some of them. They started trading, they started growing vegetables and selling them in the markets. They started their own little businesses. And eventually it built up into a very big movement.
My wife's uncle, who has been probably the biggest sugar baron ever in Mauritius, in 1947 said, "The Indians are our new masters. We have to go in business with them." And he started a sugar factory, which became the biggest sugar factory of those days, Flack United Estates Limited, with the Gajadar family.
It was in this period of economic reconsolidation that some of the great Mauritian business families, the Gajadars, the Kalachans, the Karinjis and the Tulsidases began to build their fortunes.
My great-grandfather came down to Mauritius. The fact that there were a lot of Indians already here, the indentured laborers who had come down to work in the agricultural field was here. So if they were going to come in to sell Indian products, they needed an Indian market, and I guess this would have been one of the driving reasons at the time.
My father had a little small sum of money and invested in a small business.
Increasing wealth meant increasing levels of education amongst the younger Mauritians that made them rethink the status quo. None more so than Sir Shiv Sagar Ramgoolam.
His upbringing, especially when he was a student in London, has helped him to have this vision and also to see how we need to have a tolerant society where people can live together, because he was imbued with a sense of justice and fair play.
One of Mauritius's foremost freedom fighters, Sir Shiv Sagar Ramgoolam's struggle to throw off the colonial yoke was inspired largely by his experiences in the Indian independence movement.
When he left Mauritius in 1921, he became friendly with many Indian students. And then within 3 years, he became the president of the local branch of the Indian National Congress.
On his return to Mauritius, Ramgoolam entered active politics, succeeding in uniting Indians politically behind the banner of the Labour Party. Just as once, Manilal Doctor united the diverse Indian communities socially.
Manilal Doctor की Manilal Doctor की मेरे भाइयों और बहनों, मैं देख रहा हूं कि इस देश में ये गोरे लोग इस प्रयास में हैं कि आप अपने धर्म, अपनी संस्कृति से दूर रहें। आप अपने बच्चों को हिंदी पढ़ाइए, तमिल पढ़ाइए, हर एक भारतीय भाषा को अपनाइए।
The pressing need at that time was to forge a unified Indian identity and restore a sense of pride to the fractured groups of Indian migrants that had made their way to Mauritius.
हमारे लोग समझ गए थे कि लोग हमारी अस्मिता को ख़त्म करना चाहते हैं। लोगों ने कहा कि अंग्रेजी फ्रेंच ज़रूर पढ़िएगा, लेकिन हर हालत में अपनी जान गंवा कर भी आप हिंदी पढ़िएगा, क्योंकि ये हिंदी ही आपको सम्मान देगा, अंग्रेजी फ्रेंच नहीं देगा। अंग्रेजी फ्रेंच आपको रोटी दे सकती है, लेकिन सम्मान और इज्जत आपकी भाषा आपको देगी।
Today, Mauritius is much more interested in creating a shared identity that includes all Mauritians, a remarkable transition from the time just before independence, when fears of domination by the Indian majority was foremost in the minds of Mauritius's other communities.
When we went close to independence, we were all very scared. We were scared to lose our quality of life, you know, that we would start to eat with our hands, you know.
44% say no to independence. The only country in the world say no to the independence of their country. They say there will be misery, there will be riots, and then there will be Hindu hegemony in this country. We don't want.
They were talking of Indian domination. They were talking of their women would be forced to wear saris and all that. All sorts of nonsenses were invented to frighten other people.
All the Catholics, including the French Mauritian, were a bit afraid of independence because they thought that it would completely cut the links with Europe. And I think people were probably misled by the politicians at the time because Mauritius had all to gain from independence, and it was natural that we got independence.
Despite misgivings with the majority of Mauritians agitating for independence, the post-World War British decolonization program ensured that independence was granted to Mauritius on 12th March 1968. Sir Sivsagar Ramgoolam became Mauritius's first Prime Minister.
Independence is a blessing. Had it not been independence, we would not have been so much advanced in the country today.
When the power moved from the hands of the whites into the Indians' hands, the structure of the economy was there.
Naturally, there has been industrialization, and then you have the tourism sector, and then you have several other aspects. Education. Education is now free.
Free education was one of the key decisions Sir Ramgoolam implemented after independence. That was to win the support of all Mauritians and continues to bear fruit even today.
Those people who initially started as laborers in the fields, they were very keen in getting their children go to school and really climb up slowly but surely the ladder, the social ladder.
Today, Mauritius has universal literacy and a strong economy powered by educated youth.
I went to the free government school, and I'm a product of that.
Most of us have succeeded only through hard work and strong investment in education.
The fruits of education allowed Mauritius to open up and invite the world in, secure that they could compete at the highest levels. And the driving forces here too were Indian entrepreneurship.
It was during the 80s when the government in Mauritius decided to liberalize the economy to a certain extent and open up the economy. And this gave the chance to several small and medium enterprises which were being run by Indians to grow.
Because of the Indians, we managed to keep Mauritius on, to keep the economy on.
You name any sector and you'll find an Indian there, be it in agriculture, be it in textiles.
Their contribution is everywhere, not only in the tourist industry, but in the public sectors, private sectors.
I think the Indians have contributed a lot to develop Mauritians. Today, the offshore sector, the financial sector are very close to India.
Government of India has given this cyber city. He has given a grant of $100 million for us to, because India is very much advanced in IT.
Indian companies have also invested in the Mauritian economy in areas like software and health, and are eager to be model citizens funding CSR initiatives like this ambulance donation program.
The strength of our friendship carries us forward because we have to keep our friends together, and Mauritius also does so. And I think the contribution of the Mauritians in making this bonding with India is going to be ever present.
Our relationship, India and Mauritius, is not only one of diplomacy or economic cooperation. It's more than that, it's one of blood.
and the importance of these blood connections is embodied in the Taposia clan. Franco-Indian in origin, but Mauritian in identity.
It's very important that the children know their roots and ancestral background. It's very important to know where you come from so you can look forward to the future.
Knowing what your roots are is something very important, and it just makes you a more complete person.
Today I'm coming with two ancestors' migrant numbers, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find some information on where one of them at least came from. And I'm also hoping that the people at the museum will be able to give me some tips as to how to fill in the question marks I have in the family tree.
The Mahatma Gandhi Institute has archival records of all indentured laborers. It is here Cecile goes to for answers.
Once we are provided with the immigrant name and number, we use the number as a primary facts to go and look for the information.
Started in the 70s, MGI seeks to preserve not just documents, but culture, a vital link for a people displaced.
Most of our tradition which relates to Indian cultural heritage is not written, it's all oral.
Thanks to MGI, these oral traditions are performed for all Mauritians, making them appreciate their varied culture.
When we really made this first record, then the young people said, well, if these people who are supposed to be educated and they are singing these songs, means these songs have some value. Now they sing, now they dance, everybody dances. There is no wedding when Bhojpuri songs are not sung, wedding songs are not sung.
Culturally, we've kept close ties with India. What is fascinating, you will see people from different communities all watching the Bollywood movies. It is not Bollywood which is the Indian culture, but it helps in propagating the Indian culture in the island.
I like watching Indian film.
Dil to pagal hai. I really enjoy it.
And the favorite Bollywood star is as much a debate in Mauritius as in India.
Oh, I like Shah Rukh Khan.
Amitabh Bachchan.
Shah Rukh Khan. Nitit Roshan.
Shah Rukh Khan. I like Salman Khan.
We grew up watching Indian movies, listening to the old songs of Mukesh, Raj Kapoor's movies.
But for true Bollywood aficionados, watching a movie is simply not enough. Bollywood dancing is the latest fad to sweep Mauritius.
I'm always the kind of person who likes to introduce things, you know. So I said, why not introduce Bollywood? Because nobody was doing that at that time. It really worked wonders. People were amazed by that because it was new, you know. Bollywood, I think, has got quite a powerful hand over the world, I'd say, because it's very much present into the Mauritian society.
I can jing, 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 that's all, but I don't know the words and everything.
I enjoy Indian film because it's a very romantic language and sounds so romantic, just like the Italian language. My favorite film was Devdas because the costume was so outstanding, but it made me cry for 2.5 hours.
For fashion designer Lida O'Reilly, Bollywood is just one source of Indian inspiration in creating her clothes.
I always say you can only create what you are. So I'm from Indian origin and I've grown up reading everything probably you have read or eating the Indian food. So I can only create what I am.
Leaders' start in the hard-to-break-in glamour world also came courtesy India.
There was two Miss India in Mauritius shooting for MTPA. I called Sarah Jane and I went to the hotel. And in 2 days I made my first couture dress. And what I know is next week I was in India, I was invited by Time of India. And it's all started this way. And I think India gave me that opportunity to be that somebody.
Today, whether people like it or not, India is one of our strong partners.
The link is not only commercial, but the link is between hearts. We have never cut the umbilical link with India.
But Mauritius is no mere facsimile of India. Mauritians have delved deep into their ethnic multiplicity to create a culture that is distinctly Mauritian.
Many people ask me, oh, you are Indian. I said, no, I'm Mauritian. They said, no, but you are Indian and then Mauritian. I said, I'm Mauritian. I'm not Indian, I'm not Chinese, I'm not African, I'm Mauritian. And they say, why? I said, because in Mauritius is the only place where I grew up with all the food, Chinese, African, European, Indian food. And it's all in my blood, it's my vein.
We like Indian food.
I like chapati.
The mutton korma is very nice.
Mauritian food is very like Indian food.
The spices is mostly the same, but the way you cook it, it's different.
A melange of Afro-Indian spices, Chinese fusion, and European techniques, Mauritian food is simply delicious. And where better to taste some of Mauritius's delicious food than at Chef Morgan's house.
Hello, nice to welcome you home. Thank you very much for coming. The Indian soul in the Mauritian body cooking. In Mauritian cooking, most of the spices come from India. Okay, most of them. A lot of them come from Madagascar and Africa. So we have a blend of both of the spices. The only difference between Indian cooking and Mauritian cooking is the proportion of ingredients and spices used, and the method and the time of cooking differs.
We are just the world in a small country. We eat everything. We have all color of skin, and it's a good feeling factor.
Mauritius is the melting point of cultures, of traditions, of languages, of food, and most of everything of art.
Welding together Mauritius's multi-ethnic legacy, Sandeep, like other Mauritian Indians, has converted what could fracture the society into a strength, integrating disparate cultures with their own Indian traditions to forge a new Mauritian identity.
There's a kind of Mauritian music that we are trying to create here. हम अपने गाने तो सीधे साधे हिंदुस्तानी वोकल म्यूज़िक ही करते हैं और ट्राई करते हैं कि वो ब्लूज़ में अडाप्ट करें या हमारे जो वेस्टर्न सोप्रानो स्टाइल म्यूज़िक से अडाप्ट करें और ये एक दूसरे टाइप के काम है हम we accept everything.
I listened to the music and I could hear the blues, the blues that I like, and it was good for me because I said, hey, I think I can play that music. So I put my blues in the kata, and they said, yeah, it's okay, it fits. So which means that music, there's no boundary between music, So now I'm playing with them, and the music sounds more like it's a mixture of India and Africa, and it works.
It's a lot through listening and understanding how the other work, how the others work their music, and that's where the explosion comes, and where the harmony comes, and all the laugh and the good atmosphere come as well.
Mauritian Indians have achieved the impossible, retaining their culture while integrating with others, becoming a majority committed to preserving minorities, becoming immeasurably richer for the change they dare to make.
I always say we have come from different ships, from India, from Africa, from China, from Europe, but we're now in the same ship together.
In my inner soul, heart, and this is the feeling of almost all Mauritians. Our mother country today is India.
India is also, obviously it's my second country. It's right after Mauritian, I would say I'm Indian.
Instead of being a diaspora who has to preserve its own values, it has, on the contrary, been a majority which has influenced the way of life of the other communities.
I think Gandhi said once he wanted to leave all his windows open so that all the cultures of the world could enter. In fact, we could conclude by saying that Mauritius is the home that he would have wished to live, where all cultures have come and are living happily together.
Mani